What's up? It's me, Shantrea, and I'm back with another video. Now, I know it's been at least a month. A month? Yeah. I'm gonna try to stay consistent, but yeah. I'm back with another video, and this is part 2. Y'all know how I do, okay? Got my notes again. But this is part 2 of my sexual harassment. So, after Steve had gotten my number, he also gave it to his older brother, Mark. And they were both wanting to have sex with me. So, I was still saying no at that point. Still saying no. And I still didn't tell anybody. So I wanted to tell my mom and Michael, but I saw them dancing outside to the music, and like I was literally paying attention to how they were. Like they looked so happy and so in love. So I had decided that I wasn't going to tell them because I didn't want to ruin anything, you know? I didn't want to ruin their happy moment. So, everyone eventually left, and my mom and Michael had went to bed. And I think Michael had to work also that next morning. So I changed into my night clothes, and me, Steve, Mark, and Michael's daughter went into the living room. We were still a little rowdy, you know, from the party. So we was making a lot of noise. And then my mom ended up coming into the living room, and then, you know, because we was making a lot of noise and Michael was trying to sleep. So my mama ended up coming into the living room, you know, trying to see what was going on, and she told me to go to bed. And I think my brother had went to bed around that time either. No, my brother did go to bed, you know, before, because my brother didn't come into the living room where we was. I think he was already in bed. So I laid down and turned my light off, and Michael's kids stayed in the living room. Shortly, they didn't stay in there long, but shortly his daughter had came in, and she laid down and went to sleep. No, shortly all of them came in. Eventually she had went to sleep, and I was just up with Mark and Steve. So we were just, you know, we were just chilling, just talking, and eventually, yeah, it was just me, Steve, and Mark. We was the only ones up. And I remember they kept coming in and out of my room. I was laying on my stomach, and Mark kept coming in my room, playing with my, like he was touching on my butt, like playing with my butt cheeks. So I told him to stop, but he kept coming in and out of my room and doing what he wanted to do. So I remember they left and went somewhere. I don't know where they went. I'm guessing they went to the store. I don't know. But they went somewhere. So I turned off my light, and because when they came back in, they had turned my light on. So this time they left, and I turned my light on, laid down, and then I heard them pull into the yard again shortly, in about 10-15 minutes. I looked out the window to make sure, you know, it was them. So I pretended that I was asleep once they opened my door, because whatever was going on, I just didn't want them messing with me anymore, and I was scared and nervous. I was uncomfortable. So yeah, I pretended that I was asleep once they opened my door, and one of them turned my light on, and Mark slapped my butt, and I think he told me to wake up. So that had gotten me up officially. So I was really nervous, like I said. They were both sitting on my bed. Mark was sitting to the right of me, and Steve was sitting on the left by the wall. And I remember my mom came in, I think one time, to see what we were doing, just checking, on us. And yeah, they did shut my door. By the way, once they came in, they did shut my door. So once my mama checked on us, she was just checking on us, and after that she went back to bed. I think she left my door cracked, and then I think Steve ended up closing it back. And at some point I remember Steve pulling up a video on his phone. It was porn. Let me take these off because they keep falling down my face. So I remember it was porn, and on the video it was two girls kissing, getting ready to do whatever they wanted to do. Y'all know what that is. But by that time I was very, very uncomfortable. So I guess that was one of his moves to try to, change my mind or whatever. But I still said no. They left out. Then, they left my room. And then Steve came in one more time, still trying to convince me. And I was still sticking to my no. So, a little background information for you guys. So Steve lived with us. Him and my brother shared a room together. And out of all Michael's kids, he was the only one that stayed with us. And Mark, he had a son. His son was real young at that time. I think he was about like 2, 3 years old, maybe 4. But yeah, Mark and his son, they didn't stay with us. I don't know where they stayed at, but they didn't stay with us. So I remember Mark came down. This is another time they tried it, but Mark came down to pick up Steve because they were both going to a party that night. I had just gotten out of the shower, and Mark kept texting me that he was down, that he was down here, and how he wanted to still have sex with me. And I told him no, and he said, since I don't want to have sex with him, will I give him oral sex on him? So I thought to myself, okay, if I do this for him, then he would just leave me alone. That's all he wants, so he'll just leave me alone after that. So like I said, I was just getting out the shower, and I went into my room. I still was naked, and I had a towel over me. And Mark came in my room. And I remember that night it was very, very cold. We didn't really have much heat in that house. So during that time, I think my mom and Michael were outside. I technically don't really remember where they were, but I know they weren't in the house. So Mark came into my room, and I gave it to him. And honestly, I didn't know what I was doing. I mean, I was 12. I never done anything like that before. So, and then I remember Steve was the lookout, so he could tell us whenever there was like coming in. So like I'm saying, I think my mom and Michael were outside. So yeah, Steve was looking out. So eventually my mom and them had came back in, so I had to put a stop to, had to put a stop to it. And we hurried up and acted like nothing was happening, And then Steve and Mark ended up leaving for the party. Then later that night, Mark dropped off Steve at the house, and Mark had left and went home. So, hold on. Yeah, so Steve had came back in the house late or whatever, and then Steve had woke me up talking about he wanted to have sex with me, and I'm still thinking the same thing. Like, okay, if I give him this, then he'll leave me alone, both of them. So we went into the den that night, and he had sex with me, and I remember he had put on a condom, and then he just did it. And I remember this day, October the 12th, 2013. That was the day of my 13th birthday. I was very happy, and my mom got up that early in the morning and she cooked me breakfast. I don't specifically remember what she cooked, but I know it was more than one thing. So, but specifically, I really wanted some pancakes. I remember that. But probably maybe weeks before that, Mark kept texting me, sexual things, and like he would send me a picture of his penis or him playing, with himself masturbating or whatever. Then he would ask me to send nude pictures, and he was telling me how he was going to come down, to the house on a certain day, and that day, well, he said he was going to come down and have sex with me on a certain day, and apparently the day he wanted to come, it was kind of almost close to my birthday. I think a week after. But him and his son eventually came down there that weekend, and I remember, I don't specifically remember what day October 12th was, but yeah, they came down that weekend, and like he said he would. And I remember every time I would walk past him in the house, he would either smack my butt or grab my, grab those any chance that he got. Any chance that he was alone with me, he was gonna do something, touch something. So, even if it was only for a minute. So, when he did that, it didn't just happen at our house. Sometimes we would travel, well, not travel, but we would all ride with Michael in his truck, and we would go over his grandma's house, and he would touch me there any chance that he got along with me. But it wasn't just at the house. So I don't want this video to be too long, so I'm trying to hurry up, and it's getting dark out here too. So that night, I took a shower, and then he took a shower. I think when we had went over Michael's mom's house, I think me and my brother, we was outside, we was playing, so we was pretty dirty and sweaty. So my mom told me to take a shower and everything, and I took a shower, and Mark had took a shower, and I knew what was about to happen because he was texting me all day that day. So I was afraid and I was nervous. I wanted to run away. And I remember he had got out the shower and he got dressed, and I remember he had like a white t-shirt on and a plaid pajama pants. And yeah, he came in that night in my room, and I was laying on my back, and I saw him put on a condom. Then I laid, he put on a condom, and he ended up, putting his penis inside of me. Y'all, it hurted so bad. So when he put it in slow, and then I ended up putting my hand where his private area was, trying to I don't know, maybe stop him or whatever, but because it hurted real bad. So he ended up moving my hand out the way, so it wasn't pleasant at all. And honestly, it was a good thing he didn't finish, because my mom and Michael had came in the house, and later on that night he texted me and told me to keep my he texted me and told me to crack my door, because whenever he would come in my room, my door would creak and make a lot of noise. Yeah. So really late into the night, he came back into my room, and but this time he ended up he told me to I ended up switching positions. I had my butt in the air instead of me being on my back. He told me he ended up putting his penis in my butt. And you talking about some pain? My butthole was sore for days. For a couple of days, actually. And honestly, after that night, I couldn't sleep. And I remember I think for a while after he finished what he was doing, maybe hours later, I couldn't sleep. I had just been violated, and I think my period came on that night too, because I went into the bathroom and I was crying, and then I noticed my period had came on too that night, and nobody knew what was going on. So that lasted for 2 years. Whenever he would come down, he never came down there for any other reason but to have sex with me and to touch all on me for 2 years. I had a diary I was writing in every day about what was going on, because by that time I was going crazy mentally, because I was holding all that stuff in. So I was going crazy mentally. So I had a diary. I was writing stuff in about what was going on. And then I had eventually hid it somewhere from my mom so she wouldn't find it, By the time I turned 15 years old, I came home from school. I think 15 years old, freshman year in high school. I came home from school, and my mom was in the living room crying. And she told me she found the diary, and because honestly I had forgot where I had put it. put the diary in. I couldn't find it after I had tried to hide it from her. So after I couldn't find it, I just let it go. I stopped looking for it. I'm like, well, whatever. So came home from school. My mama found it. She was very emotional, and she was asking me questions about, what was going on, because certain pages I had tore off and threw away, and some pages I kept in because for some reason I wanted my mom to find out, but then again I didn't, because I kind of felt embarrassed and I blamed myself for it. Like, I thought it was my fault that it happened to me at the same time. But she was asking me questions about what was happening, and some stuff I remembered and some stuff I didn't, because I made myself forget, and I didn't really want to remember like that, honestly. And she ended up telling Michael, and basically Michael was like, it's two sides to every story. That's all he said. So eventually I think during that time Mark ended up texting me. I don't remember what he said, but it was some down the line about him wanting, he was going to come down there and, the usual stuff. And I told him no. You're not about to keep touching on me anymore, And he was like, why? And I told him I just didn't want to do it anymore. And he was still pressuring me, like at the very beginning, still pressuring me. It was one time, even after me saying no, he ended up coming down there. He ended up coming down there that one time. He was still trying to have sex with me the whole time. He was touching all on me, the usual stuff. And but the difference is this time he ended up sleeping in my room. I had an extra bed. And I think by that time, Steve, he ended up moving out because him and Michael had got into it about something. It's not my business to tell. But I had an extra bed where Michael's daughter was sleeping in whenever she came down there. But him and his son ended up sleeping in that same bed in my room so he could be close to me. So I remember that night he was still trying to touch on me or whatever. And he would try to wake me up, so I would pretend like I was asleep, so he would still try to wake me up. And yeah, he was just pressuring me, still trying to wake me up so he can get what he wanted. But guess what? At 15 years old, I finally had got the courage to say no. But I didn't wake up. I didn't even budge. So after that one time, he didn't come down there. He didn't come down there anymore. But he still didn't quit. But he would, even though he wouldn't come down there anymore, he still would text me out of the blue, and I wouldn't respond anymore. And then he finally stopped bothering me. But finally, that is the end of my story time. And make sure you guys like, comment, and subscribe, and keep up with my channel. I'm gonna try to stay consistent with y'all. No, not try, I'm going to. But if you're not living for Christ, then what are you doing with your life?